Hello everyone and welcome back to the Evolv-Electric YouTube channel. As you can see from the title, we have an exciting update about the electric school bus campaign and the New York City Council's electric school bus bill that we've been pushing. For those who don't know, I'll just give you a quick history on the bill. Back in 2017, I met with Daniel Dromm, who was city council member, who had a bill that was encouraging school buses to move to alternate fuels and to reduce the age limit on school buses from 16 to 10 in New York City. However, the bill only had like 3 or 4 sponsors and wasn't going anywhere, and 2018 was going to be the start of a new session, so that bill was not going to pass. So I met with him and talked to his office and said, let's work on this bill and we're going to reintroduce it in 2018. And then I'd like to see that electric school buses were promoted instead of propane and alternate diesel and all the types of alternate fuels. I don't think propane is actually allowed in New York City, but it was an open bill for any type of emissions reduction technologies to be used on these newer school buses. So in about February 2018, he introduced the bill. We did a lot of lobbying with a bunch of other environmental groups in the city and also working with Dromm's office. I met with the mayor and asked the mayor to support the bill, which he said he would take a look at the bill. And in about December 18th of 2018, then chair of the environmental committee, Costa Castanides, had a hearing, which was required. You have to have a hearing on any proposed bills. So this was a lot of progress because they didn't have a hearing on the previous bill. And at that hearing, a lot of environmental groups and school bus manufacturers commented. The DOE raised some concerns about moving to electric school buses and other more efficient school buses. And also none of the school bus contractors appeared and testified at that hearing. But that hearing happened, and then in January to February of 2019, we got a lot of sponsors. We got 40 sponsors, which would be enough to pass the bill in a full hearing at the city council level. And then 2019, a lot of issues came up in school busing in general, and the bill was kind of shelved for a little bit. And then, of course, 2020 was dealing with COVID. So it looked like the bill was just going to languish and die like the previous bill. Earth Day of 2021, this year, the mayor announced that he would be pushing for electric school buses, for that all of the school buses contracted by the city should be electric by 2035. And they also created a non-for-profit Nice Bus, which operates about 1,000 school buses in the city, and those would be all electric by 2030. However, this was just kind of a general announcement, and the mayor had an executive order that talked about moving the school buses to electric. But as we know, executive orders are only as good as long as the mayor is in office, and this would be de Blasio's last year. So at 2021, it could be up to the next mayor to change the bill. So it was very important to get this codified into law. So Costa Castanides was no longer the environmental chair, but we had a new chair, Gennaro, who was a champion of school buses in the past. He'd passed a previous bill which required school buses to be cleaner and move to better emission technologies, but no school buses were actually moved under that law. So he took up the mantle, and because we already had a committee hearing, then he called for a vote to move it out of committee. And that just happened on October 7th. For those who enjoy C-SPAN, I'm going to put in the vote now, and you can watch the vote happen and the comments by the council members during that hearing. And then after that, we'll do a wrap up, which I'll tell you what the next steps will be.
Before I start, I'd like to indicate that we're joined by council members Menchaca, Levin, Diaz, and Dromm, the author of the bill that we're talking about today. Good morning. I'm Jim Gennaro, Chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection. And today we'll vote on Intro 455A, authored by Councilmember Danny Dromm, which will replace the diesel school buses currently transporting New York City school children with zero-emission all-electric school buses by 2035. This committee previously held a hearing on Intro 455 in December 2018 and received testimony from the DOE, school bus manufacturers, environmental and climate justice advocates, public health experts, and interested members of the public. And Danny's been working on the bill since then. I applaud him, as I will many times in this statement. Most school buses in the U.S. still operate using diesel engines, including those operating in New York. Currently, DOE's Office of People Transportation contracts with approximately 65 companies to provide bus service for about 150,000 students. In total, this school bus fleet includes about 10,700 vehicles operating 8,500 routes. Spending for people transportation comprises 5% of the DOE's overall budget, with approximately $1.3 billion allocated for fiscal 2019. New York State reimburses the city for approximately 50% of the cost of student transportation. Use of these diesel fuel school buses places unnecessary health risks on New York City's school children. The potential health impacts from this exposure, including increased asthma triggers and impaired lung function, are caused in part by the inhalation of particulate matter and ground level ozone, among other pollutants, which are present in abundance in diesel exhaust. Children exposed to even low levels of ozone are at very significant risk for respiratory symptoms and for rescue medication use. Air pollution increases airway oxidative stress and decreases small airway function in asthmatic children. Children riding in a school bus inhale, get this, 7 to 70 times more exhaust than non-riding students inhale from all school bus emissions in the area. In New York City, some transit sectors have begun to explore or commit to transitioning away from diesel-powered vehicles. We all know that. According to New York City's roadmap to the 80 by 50 plan, the transportation sector produces 28% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions. In December 2015, Bill de Blasio announced New York City Green Fleet, an effort to, quote, create the largest electric vehicle fleet of any U.S. city, close quote, with targets to reduce municipal vehicle emissions 50% by 2025 and 80% by 2035. Intro 455A would require the city to ensure that all school buses in use by September 1st, 2035 are all electric zero-emission school buses. The replacement of school buses shall be subject to the commercial availability and reliability of all electric zero-emission buses and the technical and physical availability of related planned infrastructure, including but not limited to the charging stations and bus depots for all electric emission school buses. That is a fancy way of saying that the city is looking for a way to kind of get out of this, but I'm going to be around and I'm not going to let them do that. And where was I? It should be noted that the technology exists right now to retrofit existing diesel-powered school buses to all-electric operation. Councilmember Dromm and I toured such a bus, and the cost of conversion is less than half of the cost of purchasing a new all-electric school bus. Take that. That's how we're going to get this done, Danny. This local law would also require the DOE to report to the mayor and the speaker on a variety of implementation targets within 3 reporting deadlines. It talks about all the reporting deadlines. Yeah, you get it. And so, but just the fact that there are these deadlines, that there are these markers, that there are these, milestones that have to be met, make this the good bill that it is. This local law would also require that each of the 3 reports, no, we did that, okay? For far too long, New York City school children have been exposed to hazardous air pollution while riding inside school buses on their way to school. With this legislation, that exposure will end, finally allowing school children to breathe safely inside of school buses. Let me say that again. Finally allowing school children to breathe safely inside of school buses. It's 2021. What the hell? Like they don't have that now? But thank God we're doing it now. And reducing local emissions in the neighborhood these buses drive through. I recommend a yes vote on this vital environmental bill. I would like to thank the excellent committee staff who have done such great work over the years. Committee counsel Samara Swanson, policy analyst Nadia Johnson, Ricky Chawla, and financial analysts, Jonathan Seltzer, and finally my legislative director, Nabi Kaur, for all their hard work. I'd like to thank Jeff Baker, who was on the phone with Danny and with me, like the night before the bill got aged. It was a whole thing. So now let us hear from Councilmember Dromm on his great bill. Once again, I really applaud him in a special way for building in all the safeguards into this bill to make sure that this actually happens. I'll mention anecdotally that this committee passed a school bus bill in 2005 to convert from diesel to alternative fuel. Not one school bus was ever converted. That was 16 years ago. And so this bill is better. That's why this is going to happen. It's got the special force of Danny on it, and so we're going to hear from him now.
Thank you very much, Chair Gennaro, and thank you for being sure that you'll be around to ensure that this, in fact, becomes a reality for us in New York City. With the passage of Intro 455, New York parents, teachers, students, bus drivers, and really all of us can breathe a lot easier. Thanks to the tireless work of advocates and this City Council, dirty school buses choking our streets and our lungs will soon be a thing of the past. Earlier this year, Mayor de Blasio announced that the city had finally recognized the urgency of a cleaner, greener school bus fleet. Intro 455 and the intense advocacy around it helped guide his decision, and its codification will ensure that the city stays on track, or should I say, en route, as the entire fleet is electrified by 2035. There are undoubtedly global benefits to converting the country's biggest school bus fleet, but I would like to focus on the more immediate impacts. Environmental justice communities, such as the one that I represent, have had to deal with a host of economic and health disparities. Dirty buses and the noxious fumes they spew most impact the individuals who spend the longest time on them: drivers and special education and homeless students. In fact, parents concerned about their children's health were the ones who first brought to my attention the need to electrify our school buses. As a former teacher who experienced, albeit briefly, trouble breathing inside and around buses, I had to agree. And as I talked to more and more people, I realized that the impact extended even further. Residents near schools and bus stops have long suffered from the air and noise pollution of our now antiquated fleet. Thanks to the people who fought to make this happen, including Justin Wood and the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, Carlos Castell-Croak and the New York Legal Conservation Voters, Tevin Grant, Committee Counsel Samara Swanston, my former colleague Costa Constantinides, my legislative director Sebastian McGuire, and this bill was first heard in Costa Constantinides' committee, and of course our current chairperson, James Gennaro, who I have to say, as soon as he became chair of this committee, made this bill move forward. Without your help and your support, Councilmember Gennaro, Chair Gennaro, this would not have happened. And you have been an environmental champion for years. I admire you and thank you from the bottom of my heart for making sure that this legislation passed.
Thank you, Danny.
Let our work here inspire the rest of the country. If New York City can do this, every municipality can and should. Our children's future depends on it. Again, thank you.
Thank you, council members. Once again, I'll end where I begin, and lauding you for your tenacity and putting this up there, getting it heard, working with the advocates, making sure that we got to this good day. So this is really, I'm happy to be part of it. And so, is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Seeing none, I guess it's my turn to ask Bill to call the record, to call the roll.
William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote. Committee on Environmental Protection. Proposed introduction 455A. Chair Gennaro.
I vote yes.
Levin. Menchaca.
I want to just underscore the importance of this bill, but really the incredible work by Councilmember Dromm and Chair Gennaro making this happen. This is these are our last weeks in the council, and for at least Councilmember Dromm and I, and some others, and you, yeah, okay, it's for a lot of us. It's for a lot of us.
I'm gonna start crying now.
Well, that's how I'm feeling. There's a lot of mourning in my heart, but we're still working. And I'm just listening to you both talk about how much you've put in these last few efforts to make something beautiful happen that needs to happen. And I love the energy that you brought to your opening statement in terms of just like, what the hell is happening right now where kids can't. That's the energy that we bring. So thank you for that, and I vote aye.
Thank you, Councilmember, and I wish to be associated with Councilmember Menchaca's remarks.
Dharma Diaz.
I vote a proud aye as a former PTA parent and a new grandma. I thank you for your efforts and for pushing it through. It's a sign of the times. So again, thank you all. I vote aye.
By a vote of 4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, item has been adopted by the committee.
Thank you. Are we leaving the record open for Eric? I don't think we have the ability to, right? Okay. So with that, this hearing is adjourned. This vote is adjourned.
All right, welcome back. That was pretty exciting, I know, but well, at least it was exciting for me. I was very surprised to see Daniel Dromm mention me during his speech at the committee hearing. It's glad to get a little recognition from the people you've been working with for over the years on this bill. It was just a nice gesture, and I really appreciate it, and I was really surprised. So what happens next? So now that it's been moved out of committee, it can go to the full chambers, what they call a stated meeting in New York City, and the all the council members can vote on the bill, and it has to pass by majority. So we should have enough to pass because we do have 44 co-sponsors, which it would be a supermajority. And as long as they all vote yay, then the bill will pass. So in my next video, we'll see what happens at the stated meeting, and hopefully the bill passes, which it should. I mean, if they voted it out of committee, I'm pretty sure someone counted the votes and understood that it would pass at this time. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, like and share to help our channel grow. And below you'll find links to our website, Evolv-Electric.org, our Twitter and Instagram,